Yo, we back with another one. Blue is our city, Manchester City fan channel. And yo, I know I've been going for a minute, man. I've been trying to enjoy myself, being that we got this little break. So I'm hoping that you guys out there doing the same thing. So I'm gonna get right into it. Today we're gonna be talking about the news about Borussia Dortmund with Haaland. They want 180 mil, and we're gonna get into that. We're gonna talk about some other things, but before I get going, I want to say, thank you guys for really helping the channel grow. So, if you're new to the channel, just know it's Blue is our city, Manchester City fan channel. Hit the like button, subscribe, but more importantly, get at me in the comments. Let me know what you guys are thinking out there, and I really appreciate all the fantastic feedback I've been getting over the last 2 weeks. So shout out to you guys, because it couldn't happen without you. So, bro, what we're going to be talking about today is this Haaland situation, and the news really just broke a few days ago about Borussia Dortmund now won 180 million euros for this guy. And I'm saying to myself, what the fuck are they smoking, They must be smoking some of the best bud times ganja times whatever you want to call it, or doing something else out there. And let's pump the brakes a little bit. I'm not saying that your man isn't worth it, but I'm just saying, we got to be smarter with our situation. So that's really what we're going to be talking about today. So now, Borussia Dortmund has now come out with, a transfer fee that they want. If somebody's going to go get Erling Haaland, and they're going to have to spend 180 mil to get him, and that's in euros. Now, let's be clear about this. This is often a tactic used to, kind of persuade other clubs to say, nah, bro, don't even try to come over here and, get this player from us, because it's really going to cost you a lot of money. So not only do Borussia Dortmund do this, but a lot of clubs do this, really. And it's just a method to say, pump your brakes, because when we put that high transfer fee out there, it tends to make clubs kind of go away and not let the player kind of get sidetracked a little bit. So let's be clear. A lot of teams do this, but have you ever noticed a habit that Borussia Dortmund have of doing this, especially of recent years? So before we get talking about Erling Haaland specifically, I want to take us back. So that's what we do on this channel, bro. I'm always going to take you back and give you a little perspective about why I feel the way I feel, or we're going to take a look at, how successful the strategy has been for Dortmund, right? So the first thing I really want to look at is, when you look at Borussia Dortmund, now they do have a policy of, trying to get the most amount of money that any club can ask for certain players. They have a history of doing this. So I wanted to go back and I wanted to look at players that they have had that they asked these ridiculous amount of numbers for. Now, and I'm looking at players that I'm really talking about that really like that, those higher level players. So you got to be at least 70 million. So when you look at 70 million, you might find players like Aubameyang. They sold Aubameyang to Arsenal for around 70 million. That deal turned out to be. That was a good, phenomenal amount of business. So that's respectable. So you can't really say anything wrong with that. But in this same season, they also sold Ousmane Dembele to Barcelona for what is now worth about $148 million. So let's pump the brakes right there real quick. So I think Dembele is a fantastic player. But I think also, if you ask Barcelona fans, kind of if they could do that deal again, would they do that? I'm not too sure that they would spend that record amount of money on $148 million or 120 million euros at the time. They would have tried to, Barcelona would have said, look, we'll give you 100, we'll give you 90, because now Ousmane Dembele is still a phenomenal talent. He's still young, but I don't think he's quite hit those levels to be 148 million. Right? So that's just really what I'm looking at. Then they also sold Christian Pulisic to Chelsea for around $70 million. Now, I think he's another fantastic player. Is he on the level of Ousmane Dembele to me? I'm going to say no, and I know I'm in America, so I'm going to get slated for that, but it is what it is. Keeping it all the way a buck on this channel. So, but I'm thinking like, bro, nobody wants to spend that much amount of money on Pulisic. I think he's phenomenal talent, but 70 million, maybe if I can get that down to 60, I'll be a little bit more satisfied, or 55. And I think if Chelsea had a chance to do this over again, would they spend 70 million euros or $70 million? I think that they would be like, let's take about 10 million of that off, and they'll be content with that business. Now, we also know that last season they put a 120 million euro price tag on Jadon Sancho. And United was close because United wanted to pull this deal to get, Jaden back to Manchester. And we were kind of complicit in the situation. And you look at it and you're saying to yourself, yo, if they're going to sell him for 120 mil, we should have sold him for more money to them, because we really gave them a phenomenal deal when we sent Jadon Sancho from City over to Dortmund, and now look at the way he's progressed. So he's done phenomenally well for himself in his time there. Maybe he hasn't had the levels that people expected from the previous season onto this season, but I think that what United showed us is that, look, they ask these ridiculous amount of monies for these players that, let's say, for instance, these players are great talents, but they tend to just ask for a lot of money, and maybe you don't get your, return on your investment the way you want it. So the point being is that Manchester United was like, okay, you guys want 120, we're willing to go to 100. And they just fell short of that deal. Not saying that Jadon Sancho, when he got to United, was not going to be phenomenal player, because I think most of us at City still have love for Jadon Sancho, but also we think that he's phenomenal talent. But at 120 mil, you can see that United was like, look, we got money. Historically, we got a lot of money, but even we're not going to even spend that amount of money. So what you're starting to see, in my opinion, is clubs starting to pump the brakes a little bit on giving Borussia Dortmund these crazy inflated amounts of money, right? So the next part I want to talk at is, all right, so what are the pros if we decide to go get him now versus if we decide to go get him later? And let me be clear on what my opinion of the story is. So I know they said they want 180, but I'm thinking to myself, City, no way in hell should we spend this amount of money. And I really hope the club just says absolutely no. And I might get slated for that, because I know that a lot of City fans want Haaland to join this club. Me as well. I definitely do too. But there's no way in hell I'm going to spend 180 million and give it to Dortmund. They are bugging. They are out of their mind. And then also think about it like this. If we gave them 180 mil, what the hell are they going to do with 180 mil? First of all, the one thing that they do have going for them is that, we are Manchester City. We Manchester City supporters over here. But Manchester City is a buying club. We're not a selling club yet. And at some point, we might have to transition over to being a selling club. But for the interim right now, we've been historically a buying club, right? But for one thing, for Dortmund, that's gotten Dortmund really where they are, is Dortmund know how to sell. They are a selling club. They know how to get players in for one price and then be able to sell those players for another price. They are phenomenal about that. So shout out to them for that. But the point that I'm making is, what are they going to do with 180 mil? Historically, they have sold some of their best players over to Bayern Munich. So when you look at Bayern Munich will go out there and use the money that they have very wisely, right? Very, very wisely. For instance, I'll give you one example. When they decided to get Hernandez from, I think that was Atletico Madrid at the time. When they got Hernandez, like, yo, we need center back help, so they could play him at center back. They could play him at left back. They spent what we thought was an exorbitant amount of money. But Borussia Dortmund, when I look at them, if we gave them 180 mil, they would go out there, use that 180 mil to try to buy 6 players. For what? So that way they can get a bunch of youth talents, build them up, and then sell. It's not like they're going to get 180 mil, go spend it on 3 players, so that way they can overtake Bayern. So that's not in their program. So why would we just facilitate this process and hurt ourselves? So there's no way we should be going out there getting him. The other part about that is, right, is that as we know, if they don't sell him this year, and that's the reason why they're asking for 180 mil, is that next year his release clause comes into effect. And I was able to do some research, and pardon me, this is just what the internet is talking, is that his release clause is supposed to be around 75 million euros. So currently, let's say that's around 91 million US dollars, right? So why would we not wait? Now, there are pros to us waiting. There are cons to us waiting. For instance, if we wait, now that pool of clubs who want to get him is going to be a lot more. You might have Chelsea in there. You might have Real Madrid in there. And I'm not saying that these clubs are not already in the mix, but yo, do I see Chelsea going to say, yo, you know what? We're going to spend 180 million on Haaland. So what is the goal? The goal is going to be to have Haaland down playing the number 9. Then you're going to have Timo Werner playing on the left. You're going to have Ziyech playing on the right with Kai Havertz at the 10. I don't see Chelsea going to break the bank at 180 mil just to go get Haaland right now. Real Madrid, of course, they like Galactico signings. That's what they do. But they still have a phenomenal striker, one of the best 3 strikers in the world, in my opinion, still in Benzema, right? So I can't really see them spending that X amount of dollars, especially knowing that they just spent 100+ million on Eden Hazard, and it hasn't worked out due to his health. So I can't really see them doing it, right? But then you might have Barcelona. So Barcelona is like, I'm not too sure Barcelona even has that amount of money right now that they can allocate towards another player. But then also still knowing that they just gave Borussia Dortmund mad amount of money for Ousmane Dembele, even though he's a phenomenal talent, he probably hasn't lived up to their own hype. So you will have a large number of clubs trying to go after him. But I believe we can work the situation in our favor is if we wait a little bit and say, you know what, you guys want 180 million. We're going to play a little hardball here, and we're going to say to ourselves, no. Because the way it's going, let's say, for instance, you know, I know we still got some games to play this year, but let me give you another strategy. So more talking about, can we survive? Can Manchester City survive if we do not get Haaland? I believe the answer is yes. We still have Gabriel Jesus, whether you like Jesus or not, whether he's living up to the hype in your opinion or not, whether you have faith in him going forward or not, you know, you still have Gabriel Jesus. I know Sergio Aguero's contract is running down to the end in this summer. We could possibly keep Jesus, sign Aguero for just one more season, because personally, I want to see Aguero be at City as long as he wants to play European football. If he doesn't want to play European football, he's thinking about going to the MLS or going back to play in Argentina, I'm all for that. But I'm not too sure we should let our own, you know, all-time goal scorer go to another European club, because that's going to really hurt us. You know, in my opinion, is that Sergio Aguero means so much to Manchester City fans. So just to see him go and go play for another European team, like, I don't want to see that personally. So imagine if we have Jesus, we keep Aguero for one more year. We still have Liam Delap in there. Whether Pep decides to give Liam a real go next year or not, we don't really know if that's the case. But then maybe we could slide, you know, Torres in there, or maybe use some of the same fluid system we've been using this year as a possibility. So I think that is probably the way to go. Then the other thing you have to look at is if you pay $180 million or 180 million euros to Dortmund, they're going to get 180 mil, but what's that? That's just a release clause. What about his agent fees? What about things like such as wages? Currently, Haaland is on, I want to say, I tried to look this up earlier. I'm not really too sure about it, but roughly he's on 151 million euros per week. Don't quote me on that. That's just from a little bit of research that I found that he's currently on. So if you're going to pay 180 mil to them, then you're going to have to look at paying him a whole bunch of money in wages, probably at least 200 to 300 million euros per week in wages. This does not help City at all. Now, there's a reverse argument to that. The reverse argument to that is, if we pay a lower amount in the transfer fee due to release clauses, that usually is going to give the player a level up or an advantage as far as being able to receive money on a per weekly basis. So let's say, for instance, we pay 75 million, euros for his release clause, but then he wants, let's say, 300 euros per week. I think that's a better deal than trying to say, all right, we're going to do 180 million release and then still have to look at giving him somewhere, because Mino's his agent. Mino Raiola knows how to negotiate. So I can't see a situation where I'm like, give him 180 mil, give that to Dortmund, pay my agent fees, and then you still got to give Haaland like let's say 250, 300 million, 203, let's say 200 to 150 pounds per week. It's just not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. So I just believe that we're better off waiting, try to get our chance next year when we can pay that reduced amount of money when it comes to the release clause. Then we might have to pay him a little bit more in wages per week, but that's gonna be a better deal for us. So let me know in the chat. Let me know, get at me and let me know, yo. Do you think that City can survive if we do not go get Haaland this year? Are you willing to wait next year, until next year, have to kind of compete again with other clubs? Let me know your thought on that. Or if you like, yo, I don't care, pay the money, let's just go get this guy in right now. I'm really interested into, how you guys think about that situation. Now, I keep saying that should City do this? And in my opinion, I say, no, we shouldn't do this. And I'm using a recent example as to why we should not do this. When you look at Manchester City as a club, right? Like I mentioned, we're currently more of a buying club. Our highest selling departures, essentially, and I want to see, do you guys know this out there? So get at me in the comments. But our highest amount of money that we have ever sold is actually a great lesson for us that we can apply in this case. So to give you a little perspective, I always like to drop a little gems on this channel because that's what we do, baby. We just try to educate all City fans out there. I'm pretty sure many City fans know this, but there are going to be other City fans who don't know this. So it's good to kind of reiterate and kind of educate our community as we go along, because we know that the fan base is growing each and every day. So the 5 highest departures that Manchester City have ever had at their club, and I'm going to go 5 all the way through number 1. So the 5th one is going to be Iheanacho. Iheanacho, back in, I think, 2017, 2018, we sold him to Leicester for around 27 million euros, right? So that's what we had there for a 20-year-old player. Then you go to number 4, where you get into a player like Negredo. Negredo, we currently sold, we sold him to Valencia for around 28 mil back in the 15-16 season. So that's good bit of business there. But as you can see, we're starting to scale up, but nowhere near Borussia Dortmund's level, right? Number 3, this is an interesting one. I'll pause and let me see if you guys can get a guess out there. I know some people are going to know this, some people don't, but I'm going to give you guys a quick second to guess who this is. Number 3. Shaun Wright-Phillips. Back in the 2005-2006 season, we actually sold Shaun Wright-Phillips to Chelsea for 31.5 million euros. So you had that. Number 2 is very interesting because when we sold him at the time, and so I can critique myself when I make these videos, I was a little hurt that we sold him because I wasn't sure about João Cancelo. Just gave you a little hint there. But we actually sold Danilo back last year to Juventus in kind of like a swap deal, essentially, for João Cancelo. That turned out to be great business for us. But we actually received 37 million euros from this deal. So, and that's for Danilo. Now, why did I bring all of this up? The reason why I brought this up is because you really want to find out, should City take an approach? You say, you know what, we're not going to spend that money. We're going to be like United and not spend the money on Jadon Sancho and kind of play hardball, essentially, right? And this is a great lesson for us. Number 1. I hated to see this guy go. That's just my opinion. I hated to see this guy go. Leroy, just know people out here, we still love you, Leroy. Just know that all day. But we sold Leroy Sané to Bayern for 45 million euros. But you guys can remember, there was one point in time to where when all of this speculation first started going on and they tried to approach about getting Leroy, at that time, we still had an extra season. He wasn't going into his last year. We had maybe about an extra season to really kind of deal with the math of it all. We essentially wanted 135 million. I would say, I'm not too sure if it was pounds or dollars, but it was around 135 million is what we were asking for Leroy. You know what Bayern said? Bayern said, nope. We're going to wait. We're not going to pay that amount of money. Not saying that they didn't value Leroy. I think that they valued Leroy the whole time. But they said, you know what? We'll wait because we know he's going to be entering the last year of his contract. We can now apply those same philosophies going forward, because if we just keep spending money and kind of paying whatever people ask for, we're going to be setting ourselves up for failure, because it's anytime it's Manchester City calling, next thing you know, all these clubs are going to want the highest amount of money. The reason why that hasn't necessarily happened is because City have a great philosophy when it comes to essentially buying players that we currently are testing, really, is that historically, let's go back 3 years, right? We never used to pay that much amount of money because we were always looking for the player who was good but not yet great, right? So if we go with Haaland, Haaland is still good. I would say not great yet because he's still so young, even though we know he is a phenomenal talent, but he hasn't been doing this for, 6-7 years or anything like that. So you guys get what I'm saying out there. So why not use the same thing that we just really learned from Bayern and apply this case now with Dortmund, right? Because essentially, this is what Bayern have been doing to Dortmund the whole time. They're like, yo, you can say how much ever you want, but then we'll find another way to get this player. They go down to the last year of their contract, and 9 times out of 10, what either happens is really, Borussia Dortmund are really forced to sell their players to Bayern. You know what I mean? So we could be able to learn from that lesson. So I'm hoping that the club takes that approach, right? So the last thing I want to talk about here, this is really going to turn it over to you guys, right? I always put these things out there to make people think. And I used to do this on Reddit. I had to get back to being on my Reddit game, but I used to always go on Reddit and throw the most difficult questions out there at Manchester City fans just to see how people would react. So I'm going to do that in this video. So now we know that Borussia Dortmund want 180 mil. I'm not willing to pay it. I know other City fans are willing to say, yo, forget it. Let's just spend the money because we need Haaland. I don't think we should do it. Some people feel differently. I respect that opinion. But what about if there's another way? So the question being is that now that, they said that they want X amount of dollars, what players would you trade? What players would you like to send to Dortmund to kind of get that number down a little bit? I'm not going to go into specific players that much because I think you don't really want to do all of that and kind of go in that in my opinion. But one thing we know about them, and I'll give you guys a clue, is that they need help defensively, right? We know that we have a phenomenal defense, right? So there's certain players in our defense. Would you allow some of our defensive players to go over to Borussia Dortmund to get that number down? Or are there players out there that you would be like, yo, you know what? We need to kind of trade this player because this player has a high level of amount of value in the market. And maybe this player goes for, let's say, 80 million. And then we can send that over to Borussia Dortmund and then, get Haaland in return for, let's say, another 80 mil or 100 mil. So let me know out there in the comments of what you guys think. First, can City survive until next season when Haaland's release clause is set to kick in? Do you think that we can survive there? Also, what players in the City squad would you be willing to part ways with and then send them to Borussia Dortmund? Only to make it fair, this is the caveat I'm going to throw in there. The player has to be valued at least $50 million right now. So that way we're not just kind of making up hypotheticals, but a player that's valued at least 50 million right now, currently, what player would you allow to go to Borussia Dortmund and get that number down? So, yo, honestly, it's been phenomenal being here again. I had to take a break. I hope you guys are enjoying the time. But, yo, I'm going to wrap up this video. But before I go, I want to say, yo, thank you for all the love and support. Blue is our city. Feel free to hit the like button, share it, but also get at me in the comments, bro. And I'll see you two next time.